Have you ever tormented yourself over something that just won't change? It lingers quietly behind sleepless nights, behind shattered plans, behind all the forced efforts to salvage what's slipping away. You've tried everything: meditation, journaling, positive affirmations, prayer and manifestation, even forcing yourself to be happy. Yet something inside still feels off, an emptiness that persists, a silent fear that no matter how hard you try, life just won't move. You look at the sky and whisper, "I've done everything. Why is nothing changing?" The issue isn't that you haven't done enough. It's not that you're inadequate. It's that you're working against your energy. You're trying to change reality with a clenched fist. But reality only listens to what radiates from inner trust. Maybe you're manifesting a relationship, but beneath the positive words, your unconscious whispers, "I don't have it. I'm not worthy." Maybe you envision a bright future, yet your body tenses every time you think about it. And what you attract never comes from what you want. It comes from the vibration of who you are. So what if the answer isn't to do more, but to stop? What if instead of striving harder, you need to let go? This is where we begin the deepest journey, not outward, but inward. Stay with this until the end, because in just a few minutes, you may never see life the same way again. Number 1. Stop running. The truth about the unconscious. A subtle lie has poisoned modern humans, that success is the result of relentless chasing. Happiness is always ahead of us, in some distant future, and it is reachable only if we run fast enough and push ourselves hard enough. But the truth is more brutal than that. We're running from ourselves, trading our inner peace for things that may never truly satisfy us. Carl Jung didn't teach us to charge forward like blind machines. He invited us to pause, look inward, and ask the soul-wrenching question, "Why am I chasing this?" Because behind every desperate desire might lie an unhealed wound. That burning need for love, does it truly come from the heart, or from a deep fear of being abandoned again? That obsession with money and status, is it truly ambition, or just a way to fill the void left by someone once making you feel worthless? Picture a young person in a cafe, constantly updating their LinkedIn, tweaking their resume, cramming 2 more skill courses, pushing deadlines until 2 a.m., not out of passion, but from a quiet fear that stopping means falling behind. Or a woman who plays healing podcasts every night, reads dozens of self-help books, journals to attract love. But her heart is still trembling, because love has ceased to be a want and has become a survival need to patch the wounds of childhood abandonment. From the lens of social media, these behaviors look admirable, productive, self-driven, and healing. But few see the real engine beneath it all, a deep feeling of, "I'm not enough." And when fear is your foundation, every effort becomes depletion, not expansion. Be brave enough to face this truth. Sometimes what we chase is just a mask, a way to avoid pain we haven't dared to face, until we stop and listen to the voice in our soul. We will keep flying toward the burning flame of false happiness like a moth to fire. You could spend hours journaling. You could repeat affirmations in the most convincing tone. You could visualize a beautiful future, even feel it vividly in your mind. But if deep within, your unconscious is still broadcasting, "I'm not ready. I don't deserve it. I'm afraid I'll fail," then all you're doing is painting a glossy coat over cracked foundations. The universe reflects your vibration. You say, "Please give me love," but your energy says, "I don't have it." And the universe replies, "Exactly." That's why people get exhausted chasing unfulfilling relationships, draining careers, fading recognition. Not because their goals are wrong, but because the person behind the goal is still bleeding. The obsession isn't with what you're chasing, but with the belief that it will somehow heal something inside you. The universe doesn't hear your words. It doesn't care what's on your vision board or how many times you repeat affirmations. It responds to your energetic field, your unconscious core. Carl Jung asserted that we are not only shaped by our conscious minds, what we're aware of and can control, but also guided by something deeper, the collective unconscious, formed by instincts and archetypes, those primal images, rituals, and symbols buried beneath our awareness. People can't consciously grasp these archetypes, but they carry intense feelings about them. Jung offered a truth that has become the guiding light for every path of awakening. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The human mind is a labyrinth. Every thought, reaction, and emotion is shaped by layers we rarely explore. Jung understood this better than anyone. He described the psyche like an iceberg. The tip above water is consciousness. Below lies a vast subconscious, the realm of past experiences, wounds, insecurities, and most importantly, our projections onto the world. What you don't become aware of will rule you. What you ignore within doesn't vanish. It shows up in your reality as destiny. Think of how fear sneaks into your life unnoticed. It disguises itself as hesitation when you doubt whether you're good enough to try something new. It hides in procrastination when you delay what you deeply want out of fear of failing. It shapes your relationships, where you give too much just to avoid rejection or loneliness. If you're wearing unconscious glasses tinted with fear, doubt, and unworthiness, you'll see lack everywhere, see others as better, see yourself as unworthy, see the world as a battlefield where you must compete and prove yourself. And so the cycle repeats. Try harder, affirm louder, wrestle with the future, while never healing the past. Many enter the path of awakening with the goal of changing their life. But Jung never told you to do that. He didn't ask you to become someone else. He didn't teach you to control the universe. He simply pointed you inward. In Jung's language, the unconscious isn't just a storage room of memories. It's the substrate of being. It's the operating system running silently behind every choice, every reaction, every hope you place in the future. And even after realizing that the unconscious is driving your life, that you can't attract anything new if your deeper self still vibrates with fear and inadequacy, the next step is even harder. You must learn to stop. Number 2, let go but don't give up. You don't crave love simply because you want to love. You don't chase success out of sheer greed. You don't stay up all night planning, building vision boards, and setting goals just because you're driven. You do all of that because there's a void inside you that's never been touched. And this is the silent tragedy of countless people awakening. We call it a dream, but really it's a survival instinct. We think we're seeking the light, but truly we're just running from our shadows. If you never stop to ask, why do I want this? You'll remain stuck in the loop of desire, where you believe that trying harder brings you closer to your goal. But really, you're just circling the same old wound you've never dared to face. No matter how positive your actions seem, if they're rooted in lack, anxiety, or fear of loss, they will always backfire. Here's a difficult truth. The more you try to control, the more things slip through your fingers. The tighter you grip, the more you lose. The more you rush to prove, the longer things get delayed. The more you force yourself to have it, the louder your energy screams, "I am not enough." That's why you must let go. Do not give up. Let go. Letting go means stepping out of the game of proving your worth through outcomes. Letting go means not interfering with what needs time to heal. Letting go is not weakness. It is the boldest act, one that says, "I am whole, even if what I want never arrives." When you step into that state of unconditional acceptance, not from resignation, but from having seen your inner wholeness, you no longer emit the energy of "I need." Instead, you emit "I already have." And that frequency is what moves the universe. Now pause and think about how nature works. A tree does not force itself to bloom. A flower doesn't stress over fruiting. Nothing tapes positive affirmations to its trunk. It doesn't panic about when it'll blossom. It simply receives the right light, soil, and water, and everything unfolds naturally. So do you. You don't need effort to become who you are. You only need to remove the layers of fear, resistance, and control, so the process of returning to yourself can happen on its own. If you agree with this, leave a sign in the comments so I know your journey has begun. And now, I want you to answer this. Do you want these things because you already feel enough, or because you believe they'll make you feel enough? If the answer is the latter, then even when you reach your goals, you'll still feel empty. You'll create yet another condition. When I hit that number in my account, I'll be okay. When they come back, I'll feel worthy. When I get recognition, I'll be confident. But it will never be enough, because the root issue doesn't lie in the result. It lies in you. You didn't come into this world to chase expectations. You came to remember this. Even when nothing changes, you can still be at peace. And this is the deepest paradox of the path. The moment you stop trying to make things come is the moment they begin to arrive. Letting go is not failure. It's the truth realized. You weren't born to control the world, but to understand yourself within it. Letting go isn't apathy. It's reclaiming your energy from places it doesn't belong. It's the calm voice that says, "I've done what I can. Now I release what I cannot." If you're hurting, stuck in the invisible web of waiting, pause and ask, what part of me still believes that getting this will fix everything? The part of you longing for love, approval, and success doesn't need fixing. It needs to be witnessed. Not by the world, but by you. When you see yourself, without shame or judgment, you stop searching for mirrors outside and start becoming your reflection. But there's a moment, rarely warned about, that comes after you let go, after you reclaim your energy, after you've stopped chasing what's out of your control. You think relief will come right away. You think the universe will answer instantly with a magical sign, but it doesn't. What comes first is silence. Number 3, the void. No magic, no signs, no whispers from the universe, just dense, still silence, an unnamed emptiness, a liminal space where the old has crumbled, but the new has not yet formed. Don't panic. This is the moment you've entered the void, the most sacred phase of transformation. Carl Jung called it creative chaos, the place where the soul begins to restructure itself without informing the conscious mind. It feels like nothing is moving, but everything is shifting, underground. You are now in the most divine phase of spiritual growth, where the old dissolves, but the new isn't yet visible. This is also the moment most people sabotage the process, because the ego panics. Why hasn't anything changed? Am I moving backwards? Am I fooling myself? The part of you that's used to controlling, planning, fixing, it wakes up. It shouts, "Do something. Take action." You may have lived this before. A quiet Saturday night alone. No texts, no calls, just stillness. Part of you wanted peace. But suddenly, you open Instagram, scroll, and your heart sinks as you see everyone out, laughing, celebrating. Or those days after quitting the job that burned you out, you tried to rest, but you saw your friends working, advancing, and earning. So you rushed to update your resume again, not from alignment, but to fill that formless void. If you listen to that impulse, you go back to square one. You destroy what was quietly being formed. You re-enter the cycle. Try, wait, disappoint. Here's the truth. The void is not punishment. It is a test. Not a test asking, "Do you believe?" but, "Can you keep believing when nothing is happening?" This is where your real frequency is measured, not by words, not by images, but by the vibration you can hold in silence. The void is the moment of neural rewiring. Your soul is not still. It is dismantling old beliefs. It is reshaping your energy. It is turning you into the person capable of holding what you used to only dream of. And yet you see no proof. So you misjudge the moment. You think, "Maybe I'm wrong." You doubt your intuition. But no, you are just going deeper, and the deep is never loud. Jung said, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. Within chaos, there is order. Within confusion, a hidden structure. What you need to understand is this. The void is where real transformation happens. It's not glorious, not dramatic, no fireworks. It's a time when nothing around you changes, but inside, you are quietly being reborn. It is still. It is lonely. It is unclear, but it is real. And if you stay, without running, without patching it with action or logic, it will become your new foundation. You may cry for reasons you can't name. You may feel drained without explanation. You may lose interest in things you once loved. All of that is okay. It doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It means you're returning to yourself. Your nervous system is learning to feel safe without proof. Your body is learning to trust the future without logic. Your soul is detoxing everything that held you back, from fear to control to false stories you told yourself. And when this phase ends, you won't be asking, "When will it come?" Because you'll already be the version of you who's ready to hold it. You won't be a seeker anymore. You'll be a match. But before that, you must pass through the silence, where there's no map, no proof, just you and your trust. Crossing the void is a mark of spiritual maturity, where you no longer need outside validation and begin building inner safety. But this is also when a question arises. Who is living this life? Who is reacting when you're rejected, when you fail, when you fall into silence? Because maybe, even now, you're not sure which part of you is steering the wheel. It's time to look at that split within. Are you living from your soul? Or are you still being run by the ego? Number 4, ego and soul. Who's in control? There are moments when you wake up feeling suffocated for no clear reason. You scroll your phone, check your messages, seeking some kind of external signal to confirm that you're okay. You act on a familiar reflex, rushing, worrying, pushing yourself to do something to feel useful. But if you pause and truly listen, you'll realize behind every action is a small, frightened, controlling voice. It doesn't trust life. It doesn't trust you. And it certainly doesn't believe that to be loved and safe, you just need to be yourself. That voice is the ego. The ego is the part of you wired to survive. It was built from trauma, from abandonment, from the need to earn love. According to Jung, the ego projects a persona to the outside world. Meanwhile, it's shaped by unconscious projections and archetypal patterns that influence how it perceives and reacts to everything and everyone around it. It believes that if you control enough, if you're good enough, if you do everything right, life will reward you. But here's the problem. The ego doesn't know what enough is. To the ego, everything is a threat. It keeps you in a state of constant tension. It makes you doubt things even when they're going well. It robs you of the present because it's always afraid of the future. The ego whispers, "If I don't double-check, something bad will happen. If I don't reply right away, they'll leave. If I don't succeed fast enough, I'll be left behind." And just like that, you get swept into a never-ending chase. A cycle that never reaches wholeness because it begins from fear. Meanwhile, your soul, the deepest, purest part of you, does not need to rush anything. It doesn't need permission to exist. It doesn't need achievement to feel worthy. It doesn't hurry. It doesn't push. It doesn't pretend. The soul doesn't work through logic, but through awareness. A quiet, unwavering knowing that says, "I am enough, right now." If you feel like I'm putting words to something in your heart, if you're standing at the crossroads between ego and soul, leave a comment below to send a clear message to your unconscious. I'm ready to change from the inside out. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But to become yourself, you must first ask, who is truly running the show? Where is this desire coming from? From wholeness or from a wound that hasn't healed? This is one of Jung's greatest teachings, to discern the inner motive. Not all desires are the same. Someone may want love, success, recognition, but if that want stems from a panicked ego, their actions will be rooted in escape. Whereas, if it stems from the soul, their actions will be rooted in alignment. So how do you tell the difference? Here's a simple clue. The ego says, do something, so you don't miss out. Do something, so you don't get hurt. The soul says, be still. Give yourself time. This single difference creates two entirely separate paths. One that leads to obsession, anxiety, and burnout. One that leads to freedom, peace, and presence. If you're afraid they won't come back, you'll text with desperate energy. If you're afraid of missing out, you'll work like someone running from poverty. If you're afraid you're not good enough, you'll study not to grow, but to prove your worth. But if you know your value, you'll act from a grounded place. You won't rush. You won't fear. You'll text because you want to connect, not to seek validation. You'll work with trust, not with panic. You'll learn to expand awareness, not to patch the hole called, I'm not enough. And just like that, your life changes. Not because you do something different, but because you become someone different energetically. That's the moment when you no longer have to force attraction, because you've become the very frequency of what you used to beg for. Choose peace, even without proof, even when the ego says, nothing's happening yet. Because when you choose peace over pressure, reality begins to shift. You're no longer a passenger in your life, you become its architect. And now, to truly live from the soul, you can't just embrace the parts of you that are beautiful. You must be brave enough to face the parts you've always turned away from. And so, a new door opens, not one that leads to light, but one that returns you to the shadow. Number 5. The shadow work. You want the light. You want a new reality. You want to manifest a life that's fuller, calmer, and more aligned with your soul. But there's a door you keep avoiding, a territory you never want to enter, a part of yourself you pretend doesn't exist. The shadow. The shadow is not evil. It's not a demon. It's not something to destroy. It's the rejected part of you. The emotions you were never allowed to feel. The thoughts you were punished for expressing. The wounds were buried deep because no one felt safe enough to hear them. The parts you believed shouldn't exist. Jung said the shadow isn't bad. But when repressed for too long, it becomes distorted and wreaks havoc. These unwanted aspects shape our adult lives, often surfacing as sudden emotional outbursts or fueling our social ambitions. To be influenced by society, we must first want to belong, to be accepted, which means the ego must comply, taking on assigned roles, obeying the rules. This, Jung said, becomes a kind of unspoken contract between the individual and society. And the more prestigious the social role, the stronger the temptation to identify with the mask. That identification is driven not just by pressure, but by our ambitions and desires. You want love, yet you keep attracting people who won't commit. You say you want freedom, yet keep reliving cycles of control. You say you want success, but you sabotage yourself just before the finish line. You cannot manifest a new life if you only love the pretty parts of yourself. You cannot love others healthily if you silently hate yourself. You cannot create from light if your core vibration is still governed by fear, shame, and unacknowledged wounds. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's a call, an invitation to return. A message from the unconscious. I want to be seen. Jung said, only by integrating your shadow can you become whole. So, what does working with the shadow mean? It's not about fixing yourself. It's not about purging negativity. It's not about reading one more self-help book to feel positive again. It's about daring to face the parts of yourself you once rejected. It's about sitting with anger you were taught was bad. It's about feeling jealousy, envy, insecurity, the emotions you swallowed just to seem like a good person. It's about admitting, sometimes I am weak, sometimes I am petty, sometimes I want to scream, break things, and run. Not to become those things, but to understand that everything you once labeled a problem was just unaccepted energy. Jung believed shadow work is a lifelong negotiation, part of self-education. It lets us rescue dormant qualities within us, to be honest about who we are, to recognize our capacity for good and our potential for harm. The shadow, often seen as negative, also holds power. It only becomes hostile when ignored or misunderstood. Jung also said, the encounter with oneself means first of all the encounter with one's own shadow. The shadow is indeed a narrow passage, a narrow door, whose painful narrowness no one who descends to the deep source can avoid. However, One must get to know oneself, to know who one is. The first step is simple. Stop and listen. No judgment, no fixing. Just listen. What happens if you don't? The universe responds to your base frequency, so the more you reject the shadow, the more resistance it creates. But when you sit down and listen to the voice within, the shadow becomes fuel for awakening. Anger transforms into boundaries. Fear transforms into wisdom. Shame transforms into compassion for yourself. Shadow work is the first step out of fragmentation. It's how you stop dividing yourself into good and bad. It's how you say to your whole being, "You are allowed to exist, and I will not abandon you again." This is the beginning of integration, and it starts not with running toward the light, but with no longer running from yourself. Number 6. Integration, becoming whole. You wish, you visualize, you write down what you want every day. But if you're still doing it all from a place of emptiness, fear, and lack, then what you attract will only be a magnified version of, "I am not enough." You cannot attract what will heal you while still operating from a broken version of yourself. Core energy always overrides surface action. Ask yourself this: why do I want this? What wound am I hoping it will heal? Is the love you crave a ticket to finally feel seen? Is the money you chase just a cloak to hide childhood fears of poverty? Is the success you long for simply a way to protect yourself from the shame of feeling small? Every desire is a breadcrumb, leading back to an unhealed place. Think about it. You say you want success, but deep down, you've never believed you deserved it. This creates a split frequency. One part pulls forward, another part pulls back. And like a confused compass, the universe doesn't know which signal to follow. To be seen, you must clarify. What part of me is still resisting what I'm asking for? So, how do you integrate? Not by getting rid of the hurt parts, but by recognizing and embracing them consciously. Carl Jung defined individuation as the process by which a person integrates the fragmented parts of themselves, especially the shadow, into a full and authentic self. It's not about eliminating the dark. It's about realizing it is a natural part of you and learning how to live with it mindfully. You don't need to chase what you want like you're running after a mirage in the desert. You need to water your soul so that you stop seeing life as barren land. When you feel full within, the world stops being a battlefield. It becomes a reflection of your inner stability. You no longer beg for things to appear. You become what they are. Love, peace, confidence, success, creativity. None of these exist only in the future. They already live within you, hidden under layers of expectations, fears, memories, judgments, and your identification with the ego. Manifestation is not about calling something external into your life. It is the peeling away of inner layers so your real light can emerge. Jung never promised to help you build a better version of yourself. He simply invited you to meet your true self, the one who's always been there, waiting for you to pause long enough to remember who you are. You don't need to put yourself together. You need to remove everything that isn't you, everything that's been clouding your connection to the universe. The beliefs others placed on you, the shame you carried for someone else, the identity you learned just to survive. Jung didn't teach us to pursue. He taught us to return to the essence. You're not building a new life. You're uncovering what has always been there. That version of you longing for love, success, That's not some future ideal. It's your original blueprint. You haven't lost your power, you've only lost your connection to it. When you stop clinging, you return to your primordial frequency, where there is nothing to prove, only something to remember. You are not here to beg for the life you want. You are here to remember that it already belongs to you. And from there, everything begins to shift naturally. Then you'll start to see every lesson, every heartbreak, every silent moment was not a punishment, but a way to bring you back to the rhythm of your soul. To remind you, you never had to become someone else to be chosen. You've always been the chosen one, from the moment you chose to live authentically. And when you remember that, you'll stop pleading. You'll simply open your heart. In the end, there is no magic formula, no map that shortcuts pain, no technique that lets you bypass yourself to reach what you haven't yet become. There is only one thing that truly exists, the state of being you're in. Manifestation is not the ego's game. It cannot be measured by how often you visualize, how many hours you meditate, or how many affirmations you repeat. Manifestation is radical honesty with yourself. It begins the moment you stop trying to create and start listening to what is inside you that has been left behind. Maybe today you're still in the void. Maybe you haven't seen results yet. Maybe you're still scared. But if you've been brave enough to sit here, to read to this line, then perhaps your journey has already begun. Not a journey toward more success, but a journey home to your whole original self. The one who doesn't need anything more to feel complete. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and maybe it's also the most liberating, because once you accept all of you, the light and the shadow, the desires and the fears, the loving parts and the wounded ones, you no longer attract life from lack. You no longer armor up to prove your worth. And maybe you'll need to return to this journey again and again. You'll forget. There will be days of doubt, days you fall back into old patterns. But the next time you feel like starting over by doing more, try the opposite. Sit down. Take a deep breath. And ask your heart one simple question. If I already believed I was worthy, how would I act differently today? Sometimes, one question like that is enough to open the door you've spent years trying to force open. And if something in this resonated with you, let us keep walking this path together. Hit subscribe. Turn on the notification button. Let every video be a quiet reminder. You don't need to go far to find the answer. It all begins with knowing yourself, because understanding others may help you survive, but understanding yourself, that's how you become truly free. Femininity has become something to be learned, pursued, or imposed upon, as if it were an external skill, a costume to be fitted, or a role to be played. But Carl Jung taught us, you don't need to become anyone else. You only need to remember who you are. And if you are quiet enough and brave enough, you will hear the call of a little girl inside you. That little girl once believed in miracles, cried over a plucked flower, and dared to love passionately without needing a reason. She was once you, before you learned to brace yourself, to appear strong, and to forget how to dream. It is in that little girl, not in any societal definition, that you will rediscover your deepest, truest, and most powerful feminine energy. So, what made you forget that little girl? Why is returning to her the most profound awakening a woman can experience? And how do you reclaim that part of your soul, the place that was once your true home? The story hasn't ended. It has only just begun. Keep moving forward, layer by layer, into your inner world. Number 1. Feminine energy through Carl Jung's lens. If reason is a headlight piercing the outer world, feminine energy is the soft mist spreading through a deep forest, undefined and needing no definition, yet permeating every cell. In the philosophy of Carl Gustav Jung, femininity is not a performance or a set of skills to be loved. It is a cosmic principle residing in every human, flowing like an undercurrent, gentle yet unstoppable. Jung called this principle the anima, Latin for living soul. It exists not only in women, but also in men as an intrinsic element. In women, however, it is the heart of their being, the seat of intuition, emotion, nurturing, connection, receptivity, and rebirth. This is why, when a woman is disconnected from her true feminine energy, she doesn't just feel lost, she feels as if half her soul is missing. Picture an underground river flowing beneath a parched, cracked landscape. On the surface, the earth splits from drought, like a woman's soul when she forces herself to live solely by reason, discipline, and predefined roles. Yet beneath those arid layers, the water still flows. Sometimes it seeps out as an unexpected tear when you thought you were fine. Sometimes it surges as a nameless longing you cannot put into words. That is the anima in Jung's philosophy, the archetype of the feminine, the inner stream of life, the home of intuition, emotion, connection, and rebirth. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, where is the underground river within you flowing now? For Jung, femininity is not tied to gender, nor is it a checklist of measurable traits. It is an energy principle, soft yet enduring, flexible yet profound, receptive yet infinitely transformative. It is an inner current that cannot be borrowed or entirely lost, only forgotten or buried. Femininity, in Jung's view, is not defined by outward behavior, but by how you connect with the world and yourself from within. Yet society tells a different story. Here, femininity is often framed as a fixed image, gentle to a fault, stylishly dressed, tactful in speech, caring for others but not too strong, independent, yet still inviting protection. A prepackaged femininity, easily consumed and readily praised, but disconnected from the vibrant essence within. When women don't fit this mold, they're labeled difficult, too masculine, or not feminine enough. Thus, society doesn't teach women how to tap into that underground river. It teaches them to manage emotions so as not to bother anyone, to hide vulnerability to earn respect, to prove their worth to be valued alongside men. When strength becomes a mandatory armor, natural gentleness, the core of the anima, is seen as a liability. Vulnerability equals weakness, and emotions are deemed a loss of control. Jung observed that when women are forced to live apart from their anima, they begin to adopt a false femininity, which he called the persona, the social mask. This is the perfect woman the world wants, agreeable, attractive, self-loving in the right way, confident but not too fierce, sweet but not weak, always knowing what she wants and how to get it. A seemingly liberating femininity, but in truth, a gilded cage. Imagine a woman attending a workshop on sacred femininity. She learns to speak softly, wear flowing dresses, place a hand on her heart when discussing emotions, and practice exercises to connect with her inner goddess. But when she returns home, she feels nothing. No flow, no aliveness, no truth. Because she was only learning to perform, not to remember. The issue isn't that these forms are wrong. They become hollow when they don't stem from the deepest truth within. For Jung, reconnecting with feminine energy means going downward, not upward. Not reaching outward to learn more, do more, or become more, but turning inward to hear the ancient call, the voice of the little girl who lived fully in her emotions, who loved the world with unguarded eyes. There, you'll find no skills, no checklists, no molds, only a raw, pure, vibrant presence. Jung didn't write for those seeking quick success. He wrote for those daring to face the unconscious, to explore the shadowy depths where both pain and hidden truth reside. In those depths, feminine energy emerges not as a charming trait, but as a spiritual force, with the power to heal and transform the entire self. Imagine a primal forest, dense, wild, with no clear path. Jung's feminine energy is that forest. It cannot be controlled or mapped, but if you dare to enter, it will engulf you and rebirth you in an entirely new way. Not a better version, but a truer one. In analytical psychology, when a woman reconnects with her anima, she doesn't just become more feminine on the surface. She becomes strong in her softness, resolute without strain, magnetic without effort. She doesn't seek love. She becomes the ground where love can take root. Such a woman may not stand out, may not fit the era's vibe, may not always be cheerful or high vibe. But when she enters a room, people feel something alive, whole, primal. They may not know why, but they sense it. That is the feminine energy that cannot be learned, only remembered. And the remarkable thing is, this energy cannot be taken away. It can only be forgotten, buried under years of growing up, parental expectations, education, and societal norms. It doesn't die. It sleeps. And it is waiting for you. Waiting for you to shed the layers, to stop playing the perfect roles. Waiting for you to sit still, not striving to become anyone, but simply listening. Waiting for you to return to yourself, and in doing so, to become yourself. Number 2, the inner child, symbol of pure feminine energy. But if feminine energy isn't a lesson to learn or a goal to achieve, where is it? After all the molds, masks, and roles donned throughout the journey of growing up, where does that pure, vibrant essence still reside? The answer lies in a deeply personal image Jung described: the inner child. If you've ever shed a tear over something small that no one else found sad, felt your heart tremble at a sunset, sang aimlessly in the rain, or laughed loudly at a silly game without fear of judgment, that wasn't you today. That was the little girl from long ago, the purest part of you, still quietly living within. Carl Jung called the eternal child an archetype, a symbol residing in the collective unconscious of humanity. In every person, male or female, this childlike part exists. But in women, the inner little girl holds a uniquely profound meaning. She is the guardian of pristine feminine energy, undistorted, untrained, and unconfined. This image isn't about harmless naivety or the fragility adults often assume. On the contrary, this little girl possesses an untamed vitality, a raw instinctual freedom. When she cries, it's because emotions overflow beyond restraint. When she laughs, it's because the world resonates with her natural frequency of joy. When she loves, it's because her heart hasn't yet frozen. In every small act, Feminine energy flows through her like breath. Yet, the process of growing up pushes this little girl into the shadows, not through violence, but through the steady drip of daily words. Stop crying. Girls must be strong. Don't believe in dreamy nonsense. Learn to love yourself this way. Behave that way. Each word is a brick in the box where she's confined, a box of fitting in, of so-called maturity. And so she vanishes. A stark example is the successful woman who feels hollow. She may be accomplished, intelligent, sharp, with a thriving career and a stable life. But at night, she feels a strange longing, as if something vital is missing, yet she cannot name it. This isn't about lacking love, money, or goals. It's about losing herself, specifically, losing the little girl she once was. Imagine you're lost in a forest thick with fog. You turn on a flashlight, check a map, and consult Google, but no path is clear. Just as you're about to give up, you hear a faint song echoing from afar. Fragile, delicate, yet deeply familiar, as if you've heard it in a dream. That's the voice of the little girl within you, trying to remind you of the way home. If you've ever heard that song within yourself, leave a sign in the comments, perhaps a symbol or a brief share. Sometimes, your story can be a lantern for someone else finding their way back. To reconnect with pure feminine energy, you don't need to learn anything new. You need to remember, not with your mind, but with your aliveness, remembering what it felt like to be yourself, without pleasing anyone, without being properly feminine, without striving to be beautiful or kind, just being true. Jung said that individuation is the journey of returning to the center of your soul, where no one has defined you. In that journey, the inner little girl often appears as a guide, not because she's wiser than you, but because she never forgot who she was. As you peel away each mask, dare to feel what you've hidden, cry without shame, or dream without feeling foolish, she emerges clearer, brighter, more alive. One of Jung's most profound images for the child archetype is the hidden divine. This may sound religious, but for Jung, it's not confined to faith. It's a psychological archetype, a spiritual structure in the collective unconscious, appearing across cultures, eras, and mythologies. Jung saw a unique truth. The child is not just a symbol of beginnings and innocence, but a seed of rebirth. The archetypal child carries infinite potential, the ability to become anything, go anywhere, create any new form. Unbound by the fixed frameworks of adulthood, it isn't confined by who I am or how I must be. This openness makes it the only doorway to self-recreation. In ancient cultures and religions, divine children appear repeatedly. In Greek mythology, Eros, the god of love, is a winged boy whose arrows stir hearts. In Christianity, Jesus first appears as an infant, symbolizing hope and salvation. In Buddhism, the newborn Buddha represents primal enlightenment, untouched by knowledge or experience. In indigenous cultures, children are often seen as newly arrived souls, bearing purity from the spiritual realm. What unites these symbols? Their power comes not from experience or authority, but from being untainted by the world. A child hasn't learned to wear masks, hasn't been bound by societal rules, and hasn't learned to suppress emotions or stifle dreams. This purity carries an energy adults have lost. Why did Jung call it the only path to return to the source? Because every effort to become yourself begins with a question. Who was I before the world told me who I am? The answer lies where that little girl waits. To rediscover true aliveness, you cannot start from the current version of yourself, already defined, framed, and bound. You must return to the starting point, where your essence was unwritten. In analytical therapy, Jung and his followers often encouraged patients to reconnect with the child archetype through dreams, painting, or playful creative acts, not to become childish, but to awaken the freshness and regenerative power sleeping within. One woman shared that, while scribbling with children's crayons, she suddenly felt a freedom forgotten for 20 years. It wasn't just play, it was the moment she stepped back through the gate. Thus, the little girl within you is not just a sweet memory. She is the key, the source code, the only way back to your purest feminine energy. In an era defined by checklists and KPIs, her presence is a revolutionary act. When you choose to slow down, feel more deeply, and connect more authentically, you defy a world obsessed with efficiency. Yet that act is what reignites a vitality no femininity skill can create. Number 3, the process of individuation and the journey back to that little girl. And at that moment, the question is no longer, is she still alive, but how do I meet her again? Jung called this journey by a name that seems distant, yet is closer than anything: individuation. Individuation is not a climb to reach the most perfect version of yourself. It's not a series of challenges to prove you're strong, wise, or worthy. Instead, it's like a descent deep into the earth, to the basements you've long locked away. In each layer, you'll encounter parts of yourself you've hidden: anger, fear, forgotten dreams, and sometimes a familiar face, the little girl who was once you. Picture your soul as an ancient house with many rooms. The living room shines brightly. That's your conscious mind, where you live daily, greeting the world with smiles, pleasantries, and safe responses. There's a study where you set goals and rational plans. But beneath the floor lies a small dust-covered door. When you open it, a staircase leads to a dim space where rejected memories lie still, alongside old toys, scribbled drawings, and childhood diaries. Individuation begins when you dare to descend those stairs, not to clean the mess, but to sit down and realize, I abandoned myself here. Jung said the shadow, the part of yourself you don't want to face, is not an enemy, but a doorway to wholeness. And sometimes, if you stand still at that threshold for a moment, you'll realize you've been hearing soft knocks from within for a long time. The little girl inside you often resides in this shadowy realm, not because she's bad, but because you once believed she was weak, silly, or unrealistic. You tucked her away to grow up, to succeed, to mature, and unknowingly tucked away your life force with her. Return to that ancient house and stand before the dust-covered door. Facing the shadow doesn't mean charging into the basement to clean it up or hunt monsters. It's the slow act of placing your hand on the railing, stepping down each stair in the chill, knowing that what you're about to meet isn't an enemy, but parts of your life you had to leave behind to survive. The shadow, for Jung, isn't just the dark side of sins or flaws. It's all the qualities, emotions, desires, strengths, and even beauty you didn't dare acknowledge because of family, culture, gender, religion, or simply because at the time you lacked the resources to embrace them fully. Many women push into the shadow even their brightest parts: ambition, sharp intellect, the ability to set boundaries, a hunger for pleasure, an uncompromising voice. This is the golden shadow, the radiant parts rejected out of fear of being unloved. Signs that you're touching the shadow appear in everyday moments. You find another woman inexplicably irritating, often because she reflects a part of you. You lecture others on proper femininity to mask suppressed anger. You feel emotionally numb, but explode unexpectedly, or you keep yourself frantically busy to avoid sitting still with the call from the basement. The shadow also shows up in the body. A lump in your throat when you want to say no. Shoulders tensing when you need to seem fine. A knot in your stomach when old fears are triggered. The body is the closest door to the basement, where memories and emotions lie like unopened chests. Facing the shadow doesn't mean becoming it. You don't need to turn into a rebellious version of yourself, tearing everything down to prove you're free. Jung called this identifying with the shadow, another trap of the ego. The goal isn't to destroy or embody it, but to look, name, and hold yourself as a witness. You sit amid the dust and damp wood, opening each chest of memory. Here's the anger you learn to swallow with a smile. There's the envy of women who dared to live boldly. There's the shame of wanting more. You place your hand on each and whisper, "I remember you." That whisper breaks the spell, for the shadow grows when rejected. It dissolves when seen directly. In the practice of facing the shadow, there are 3 lanterns to carry into the basement. The first is reclaiming projections. When someone triggers you intensely, whether through dislike, admiration, or contempt, pause and ask, what part of me is this person mirroring? Not to self-blame, but to reclaim the energy you've cast outward. When you retrieve those pieces, your inner strength returns. The second lantern is active imagination, a technique Jung encouraged. Close your eyes, picture yourself in that basement, and invite a figure to step forward. The little girl, an angry woman, a harsh voice. Speak aloud, or write a dialogue. What do you want from me? How have you protected me? How can I support you now? Don't argue, listen. The third lantern is bodily markers. When emotions arise, instead of analyzing, locate them in your body, throat, chest, stomach. Place your hand there. Breathe 10 times, and let the body finish what it wants to say. This is how you let the shadow pass through, rather than pushing it back against the wall. This journey isn't always pleasant. Jung was blunt. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. When you return to that little girl, you'll touch unhealed wounds, moments of rejection, times you believed you were not good enough, and learn to shrink yourself. But by daring to touch those without running, you earn her trust. And when she trusts you, she begins to return what you've lost. Innocence, belief in miracles, and the primal feminine energy that needs no performance, no proof, only presence. Individuation isn't the kind of self-development society praises, quick, clear, with measurable results. It's more like an underground river. You can't see its entirety, but when it flows, the land grows fertile again. You stop worrying about what others think, or am I feminine enough, because you know you're walking, step by step, toward home. Remarkably, as you begin to live with her presence, the outer world shifts in ways you didn't predict. You start choosing work that excites you, not just what's safe. You choose relationships with real emotions, not just those that meet standards. You let yourself laugh loudly, speak imperfectly, and cry when needed without telling yourself to control it. That's when individuation becomes more than psychological theory. It becomes the living pulse of your life. For Jung, this return isn't a separate path, but the heart of every inner journey. And the little girl within isn't just a charming childhood memory. She's the only guide who knows the way. She stands where you began, before masks, expectations, or the stories you had to tell to please the world. To meet her, you don't need to turn back time. You only need to turn inward. Then you'll understand why Jung didn't speak of finding yourself, but of integrating yourself. In the moment you embrace that little girl and let her merge with you, you're no longer adult or child. You are one, whole, alive, and feminine in a way no one can define but you. If you're ready to begin this journey in your own life, comment, "I'm ready," and join me in the practices, where you can reconnect with that little girl, not just through thought, but through real experience. Practice 1. Write a letter to your inner little girl. The first practice starts with the simplest act, writing a letter to the little girl within you. Imagine standing before a vast field where, in the distance, a young girl plays alone. She doesn't look at you right away, but you know she's you from years ago, with eyes that never learned to guard and a smile that was never restrained. Before approaching, sit at a safe distance, open a notebook, and begin writing her a letter. This letter isn't to convince her to forgive you or to offer advice. It's to open a door to dialogue. You might start gently. "Do you remember me?" Or, "What made you happiest when you were little?" Don't rush for perfect answers. Write whatever surfaces, as if chatting with a long-lost friend you've missed for countless stories. At first, the words may feel stiff, but with patience, emotions will seep in, softening and truing the sentences. You might recall the scent of morning breeze on the way to school, the sound of flip-flops in a hallway, or the feeling of doodling on a desk. That's her answering, not in words, but in memories and sensations. Keep this letter for yourself, not to send to anyone else. Each time you reread it, you'll notice details you missed before, as if she's adding to the story every time you open the page. Writing isn't just connection, it's a quiet promise. From now on, I'll listen to you. Sometimes, that promise alone is a giant step toward home. Practice 2. Conversing with the shadow through dreams and journaling. As this door begins to open, you can go deeper by conversing with her through dreams and journaling. Jung called dreams the royal road to the unconscious, and for the journey to your inner little girl, dreams are a delicate map. Each morning, as you wake, write down what you remember, even if it's fragmented. Don't dismiss it as nonsense or irrelevant. In the dream world, every symbol is a message. Notice if a child appears in these dreams. Sometimes she's vivid, with the face you saw in the mirror in elementary school. Other times, she hides in the form of a doll, a classroom, or a small room. Or she may not appear, but the dream evokes childhood feelings, helplessness, curiosity, or pure joy. After recording, open your journal and write, "What is this trying to tell me?" You don't need logical answers, just let the thoughts flow. Often your shadow, the rejected parts of yourself, speaks through strange images, and perhaps in a sudden dream, she'll step forward, offering something you lost. That's a sign she's ready to talk. Practice 3. Do something silly each week. Once you've heard her call, Create space for her to step out by doing things that seem silly to the adult world. Try swinging on a park swing, eating ice cream in the rain, doodling messily without caring about stains, or wearing an outfit that's entirely out of style. The goal isn't to relive childhood, but to break the rules that have caged you too long. When you do something silly, you signal to her that you're ready to enter her world, a place where joy needs no reason. These acts often unlock memories. The creak of a swing might take you back to an elementary schoolyard. The smell of crayons might recall a rainy afternoon of drawing. Each memory is a thread, pulling you closer to her. Let each silly act be a date with her. Week by week, she'll trust that you're not just saying you want to meet, you've truly arrived. Practice 4. Quiet time. Amid life's rush, silence becomes a luxury. But to hear her voice, you must step into a space where the world's noise cannot intrude. Dedicate 15 to 20 minutes daily to quiet time. No social media, no music, no work. Just you, your breath, and the space around you. At first, silence may make you restless. Your mind might chatter. There's an email to answer. What should I do next? But if you stay, the noise will settle. Then, a space opens, and that space is the door through which she can step. In silence, memories and emotions may surface unexpectedly. You might recall an afternoon lying in bed reading stories, or a moment of being unfairly scolded in class. Whether joyful or painful, these are reminders that she's drawing near. Don't force it. Simply hold this space daily, and your connection to her will grow clearer. Number 4. Femininity doesn't need to be pursued. It needs to be revived. When you found the little girl within and let her step into your present life, you'll realize something that seems simple, yet transforms how you see yourself. Femininity has never left you. It's not something you need to learn, strive for, or labor to achieve. It was there from the beginning, buried under layers of roles, expectations, and lessons about how you must be to be loved or accepted. Reviving femininity isn't like chasing a precious gem across a distant sea. It's like standing before a once lush garden, neglected for years. Weeds have overgrown, flowers have wilted, and the soil has hardened. Yet, if you kneel, you'll see the seeds are still there. They never died. They only slept. You don't need to replant. You only need to water, clear the hardened earth, and let light and air reach them. Jung once said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it." The revival of femininity doesn't begin with changing yourself to fit a new mold, but with accepting the parts you once rejected. Femininity isn't measured by rehearsed gentleness or learned skills to be alluring. It's measured by how much you allow yourself to live authentically. Soft when you want to be soft. Strong when you need to be strong. Crying when it hurts. Laughing when you're joyful. Without asking anyone's permission for any of it. Look at women whose feminine energy draws others near. They aren't necessarily the most beautiful, the most stylish, or the most eloquent. But they have something elusive. A presence that makes you feel you can be yourself around them. They carry a flow that's gentle yet resolute, like a river, slowly winding through every crevice, unhurried, unshowy, but unstoppable. That is femininity revived. The difference between pursuing and reviving lies in direction. Pursuing is looking outward, comparing yourself to an ideal, and striving to attain it. Reviving is turning inward, clearing away the dust to reveal what was always there. Pursuing drains energy, reviving creates it. A woman chasing a definition of femininity will always feel lacking, as that definition shifts with trends and times. But a woman who revives her femininity will always feel enough, because she measures by her connection to her essence. Reviving doesn't mean you're always in a state of beauty or harmony. A flower doesn't bloom year-round. The moon isn't always full. Femininity is the same. It has its seasons, sometimes hidden, sometimes radiant, sometimes blooming, sometimes retreating. Its life lies in movement, not in permanence. When you embrace even the days you're quiet, messy, or not feminine at all, you're living its true spirit. I once met a woman who experienced this. She spent years studying sacred femininity, attending numerous workshops, and practicing numerous rituals. But she confessed she still felt exhausted, as each day was a subtle competition to prove she was feminine enough. Only when she abandoned all the exercises and sat down to write a letter to herself at age 8, not to heal or analyze, did she realize she no longer needed to prove anything. She said, "I realized femininity isn't something I learn, it's something I allow to return." Psychologically, this is the integration of the anima, the feminine archetype, into consciousness. When you live with this part, you no longer need to perform it. It becomes how you exist, in how you listen, how you touch the world, how you let intuition guide you. Jung saw the anima as a bridge between the conscious and unconscious. When that bridge is strong, you connect more deeply not only with yourself, but with the world around you in a way that's authentic and unforced. And here's the miracle. When femininity is revived, you no longer need to seek love, respect, or safety from the outside. Those things start finding you, not because you try to attract them, but because you become a living magnetic field, not one of outward beauty, but of authenticity. If these words resonate and you want to join me in diving deeper into these inner explorations through Jung's lens, leave a sign to let me know you're still here, a like, a subscribe, so we don't lose each other. Femininity doesn't need you to chase it. It needs you to return. It doesn't need you to mimic a model. It needs you to shed the layers. It doesn't need you to create it. It needs you to remember it was never lost. And you'll see, once it's revived, you don't have to hold on to it. It is you there from before you learned to forget. And as notions of proper femininity fall away, you'll realize this journey was never an outward search. It's a return to the river that's always been there, flowing quietly beneath the dry layers of reason, roles, and expectations. Reviving femininity doesn't make you a more beautiful version by anyone's standards. It makes you truer to yourself. You'll see you don't need to choose between strength and softness, reason and emotion, independence and connection. They all have a place, and when they blend, they form a quiet strength that nothing can shake. Notably, this change is often subtle. It doesn't come from dramatic turning points, but from small moments. A morning when you wake up and realize you're not forcing a smile. An afternoon when you let tears fall without apologizing. An evening when you feel at peace despite unanswered questions. These are signs that femininity has stopped sleeping and begun breathing in you again. From that moment, the outer world shifts too. Not because the world suddenly favors you, but because you no longer approach it from a place of lack. You don't seek to fill a void. You meet to share. You don't try to make an impression. You simply exist. And that unguarded, uncalculated, unmasked presence is the strongest magnetic field you can carry. When you achieve this, you'll understand why Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are."